Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Is it better now?
Yes, it's better.
Yes, it is.
Okay, great. Hope you're all doing fantastic.
Yes, we are.
Okay, so it's such a pleasure to welcome you all to this exciting and important conversation. As my colleague said, my name is Nanama Ewuku, and I'll be your moderator for tonight's session. So feel free to turn on your cameras. We'd love to see your beautiful smiles. So this evening marks the beginning of something truly special, the Data Leadership Roundtable. Can I see some clapping emojis in the chat? Yes, I see those emojis. So this is more than just a webinar series. It's a space we've intentionally created to bring data to life. So in this session, we are going to explore how it shapes leadership and drives innovation and solves real-world problems across industries. So we often hear data being the new oil, but what does that really mean? Using data to make a difference. So that's what we're going to uncover tonight. So whether you're part of Blossom Academy community or simply curious about how data intersects with leadership and impact, you're in the right place. Get ready for a powerful lineup of speakers who are not just talking about data, they're using it to change the world. So let's dive in, and get inspired. I hope we all have our notebooks and our pens and are ready for this impactful session. Data Leadership Roundtable. Insights, impact, and innovation. So before our first speaker begins, let's just have a little icebreaker session. Are we ready for it? So what I want you to do is drop an emoji in the chat to show how you're feeling about today's session. So just drop an emoji of how you're, ooh, I see a fire emoji, I like that. How are you feeling for today's session? Okay, I see a heart emoji, dancing emoji, cheers. That's also positive. Fingers crossed, Edmund. Okay. Sweat dripping down emoji. I'm not even sure what that means, Stefan. Oh, yeah, okay, I get it now. Okay, Betty has her glasses on. She's ready to digest all that we're about to impact. Yeah, Laurentia. I love that. Okay, I see that we are all ready. And if you had to guess what the biggest surprise takeaway from this session might be, what do you hope to learn? So just give me a short answer of what you hope to learn from this session. You can either write it down or you can raise your hand up or mute you, or you'd be unmuted, and then you share what just something short. What do you think your takeaway from this session will be? I just need to be sure we're all prepared, we're all ready to be impacted. Any volunteers? I'm not seeing anything in the chat. It means y'all aren't ready for today's session. Or you're not sure what to expect. I hope you guys have expectations. Tell me something. Okay, Eunice says, to understand the current trends in the data landscape in Ghana. Okay, interesting. Anyone else? Any other person? Okay, NS says, I expect the exact meaning of data and its usefulness to business. Okay, interesting. All right, NS, thank you so much for that. Okay, I'm looking for one more. Okay. Joanne says, how data drives profitability in business. Okay. And Laurentia says, I'm not sure what to expect, just here with an open mind, ready to learn. We love that. We love that, Laurentia. All right. So let's just dive right into it. I'm going to introduce our first speaker. He's in the person of Stefan Mills. He's a data analyst and he works at the World Food Program. Can we give it up for him? Let me see some emojis. Oh, okay. Betty says to learn how my insights and data will drive innovation. We love that, Betty. Yeah, let's see some clapping emojis for Stefan Mills. By the way, guys, Stefan is an Adisco boy. Yeah, he went to Adisco. All the Adisco lovers in the chat. He went to Adisco and then he went to KNUST after that and studied computer science. Stefan, we are ready for you to take over.
Hello, Alberta. Thanks a lot for this introduction, and hello, everyone on the call. It's my pleasure to be here today to speak to you about how the data is being used in the humanitarian area. At the end of the day, I hope I may be able to see how the beauty of data, particularly in the humanitarian sector. Permit me to share my screen now. That screen share. Is my screen visible? Hello, Alberta, is my screen visible?
It is. Your screen is visible.
Okay. You can see the slides, right?
Yes, improving lives one data point at a time.
Yeah, exactly. So this is what I thought about when I was given the should I say the information about me coming to speak today at the leadership roundtable, and Blossom holding a special place in my heart. I decided that, you know what, I have to stop everything I will do and prepare adequately for this. So I've titled my presentation Improving Lives One Data Point at a Time. So as Alberta said, my name is Stefan Mills, an alumni of KNUST, Adisadel First, as she mentioned, KNUST, and Blossom Academy. I got the opportunity after my university education to work with Huawei, where I moved from a wireless engineer to a product manager. I decided to take a sabbatical break to study. That's where I found Blossom Academy. And post Blossom, I was linked up with the United Nations World Food Program, where I am a data analyst there. But I see myself more as an ML engineer. And a little to know about the World Food Program is that it's one of the UN agencies. We've heard of agencies like the UNICEF, the UNFPA, the UNDP, and so on and so forth. So the WFP is an agency in the UN whose focus is mainly on the SDG 2 goal. You know, there are 17 SDG goals, and the WFP is focused on SDG 2, which is zero hunger. And in WFP, we look to bring in life-saving assistance in emergencies and support sustainability, sustainable and resilient livelihood, and achieve a world with zero hunger, which, in as much as it's difficult, we are pushing very hard to attain that. In WFP, we have a multi-year plan where we look at 5 strategic areas. The first strategic area that we look at is emergency response and preparedness, where we look at trying to assist affected population who are and trying to help them meet needs before, during, and the aftermath of crisis. Our strategic outcome 2 is nutrition, where we look at making sure that everyone is not malnourished in the country. And the third one is food systems, where we look to support smallholder farmers and also strengthen their capability and local food systems. We also have social protection, which focuses on the gender bits to be able to make sure that we are including everyone in it, an on-demand service for any external services that you want WFP to provide. we are into support. So for a disclaimer, I'm going to talk in a context of humanitarian, not just WFP. So in the humanitarian area, the question is, how do we use data? In our planning, we use data. Particularly at WFP, data is a vital asset which is capable of accelerating progress towards core objectives and the 2030 SDG goal. The role of data for us is to equip our business and help leaders make informed decisions. So in the humanitarian space, what I've realized is right from the planning stage, so before we are able to get funds, many people think that the humanitarian space is just giving our money to people, but a lot of work goes into it. You have to go to the donors to make sure you convince them. And this convincing is not just about words, but we present them with data of issues happening on the grounds. In the subsequent slides, we'll be talking about some case studies, right? So in our planning, we write our proposals, showcase the data of what is truly wrong. And this particular proposals that are written trigger funds for us. And we are able to assess what's need we have to provide. It's not every time that we have to go in with cash. Sometimes you have to go in with capacity building and all that. So the data that we use helps us get to this particular point. In our operation, for the humanitarian side, I think we are Oliver Twist. We always ask for more. It's never enough, you get it. And since it's never enough, we have to try and optimize our operations because we don't have so much available to give to the vulnerable. And hence, we use data to help optimize our operations to make sure that the limited resources that we have are allocated to the most vulnerable and those needed. And for us also, post the assistance and post the implementation, the data gathered afterwards would also form as a catalyst for further actions to be taken. So we don't just leave the actions, we don't just leave the implementations as such, like giving them the support and just leave it as such. But after that, we do something we call post-distribution monitoring to be able to see how impactful the help we provided has been to whoever benefited from it. In the next slides, we'll talk about some case studies in the humanitarian area to show how data was utilized and how people benefited from this particular support. So our first case study, I call it Project X. And in this Project X, it happened, or it occurred in May 2024. And Project X sought to, so a little background of the backdrop, against the backdrop of the COVID-19, where we all experienced increase in prices. The same way farmers also experience increase in inputs. And because they couldn't afford all these inputs, when I talk about inputs, say fertilizer, seeds, and all that, they wanted to resort to negative coping mechanisms. And what are these negative coping mechanisms, if I may ask? These negative coping mechanisms are, we had people willing to sell their lands to be able to get money and feed their families, right? In as much as it's a good approach to save the family, it affects us, those who do not maybe cultivate, because these things that we buy from the markets are all coming from all these highly crop farming areas. And if these farmers decide to sell their lands and all that, it will become a national, I believe it will become a national security issue. We have similar issues for people selling their cocoa farms, for galamsey sites and all that. And you see how the government is really triggered as to making sure things are done right. So for this particular project, or for all the projects, I've realized it is in 3 stages. The first stage being planning stage, the next being the data insights, and the third stage being support and monitoring, sorry. So in the planning stage, we have our stakeholder engagements. And as I mentioned earlier, you are meeting these donors, you are meeting these funders, you are meeting these partners. We just don't go and say, give us money, because our KPI is to be able to eliminate zero hunger. We go with them with the data on ground. So this particular project, we went with the survey that was done with farmers being willing to exchange their farmlands for cash and all that. And hence, we're able to trigger funds from key funders. After this engagement with the stakeholders, what we did was we went back on ground again to collect data. So at the very first point, we collected data to see what's happening. Now we go back, we collect more data to see what is actually the need of those who are being affected, right? And we go there and we realize the people need cash to be able to help them buy inputs, buy seeds for their farmlands. And hence, looking at this, we come back to the drawing board with the data that we have to be able to make some frameworks and go with it during the implementation. So for the data insights, we go on field, we target. And when I talk about targets, and what happened in this particular project was we had a criteria of females. We had a criteria of selection, right? We know that we had limited funds, but we had people who are vulnerable in the vulnerable brackets. So hence we had to rank and target people. So the targets we used were prioritizing people with disability, the youth, that's female youth first, followed by the male youth, before women, people who are chronically ill. Then after, we focused on men. We did this because we realized that the most affected, per the data that we have gathered during the planning stages, were the key people that were mentioned. That's the persons with disability together with the youth and females. So we go there, we target. So we do a head count first. We target, we go to the community surveys, we speak with the leaders, we do a head count first. We sit with them to do the ranking. And this time around, in as much as we have the data, we have to get the buy-in of the elders. You know, when we go to Rome, we do what Romans do. So we go with them, we sit with them, and at the end of the day, we are able to rank people who are in it. So we go to a community and say we need 10 people, but 30 people have registered. We go there, we have the elders help us select the 10 most vulnerable people in the community, since they know the community that much. So once we get this targeting and we rank these individuals, we move next to the data collection. So for this particular project, the data to be collected were biodata, where we looked at taking information from them, their personal lives and their implementation, their farming lives, their food security, and all that. How many times they've eaten specific foods and all that, to help us calculate if this particular vicinity is a highly food insecure area. And also, because we were looking at farmers in this particular scenario, we didn't just take data from anyone. Once you give us the data, we go to your farm, we take the farm size with the help of geospatial analysis, where people talk about it as GIS. So we take the farm size. So we had a criteria of 0.5 to 10 acres, but for men, we had to limit it to from one acre to 10 acres. So that's what we did. We went on farm to take the points. Then afterwards, when the project started, we went back to the office to gather data. So the data was collected on a copy, sent to our server, and we had built a pipeline to be able to clean the data and also analyze and show live reports daily. After the analysis, what we did was we were able to do internal ranking with our models that we've created, right? And in this way, we're able to shortlist our beneficiaries, and afterwards we okayed them for cash-based transfers. And the number of beneficiaries who enjoyed from this particular program were 18,000 beneficiaries, right? Then afterwards, the cash-based transfer, what happened next was we did a post-distribution monitoring. That's the PDM and reporting. So we don't just give them the cash, but then after, we go back and see how impactful did the cash that we gave them help. In the next slide, I'll talk more on the cash-based transfer, what we did, what we found, and the strategies that we use there. At the end of the day, each and every individual who was selected received a sum of about 4,300 to help them push absorb the shocks that they've experienced, and also help them in order to make or come back and buy some produce for their farm. That's for Project X. For Project Y, this time around, this happened in November 2024, and it was a national issue. I don't want to mention anything, but if your ears were on ground from August right to December, it was really hectic, where we had some rains not coming for vital areas in the country, particularly the farming areas, and people were experiencing some droughts. And these droughts, as I'm saying, has effect on us in the south. So we had about 1.8 million hectares being affected, which was equated to somewhere around 10% of the agricultural GDP, which is like about $2 billion US. And here, what we did was our stakeholder engagement. So this stakeholder engagement in the planning stage took a different thing. What happened here was that we had the data, we went to multiple stakeholders who were interested in helping. Now, in order to not have households benefiting twice because of limited funds, we're able to segregate who does what at what stage. And it was a nice sight having the government together with other implementation partners sitting on a table to agree as to, I take the South, I take this district, I take this region, to be able to support. Next, we did a needs assessment. So the needs assessment went on ground, and this needs assessment did more of geospatial analysis. We went using the satellite imageries to be able to detect how bad the situation was, and we realized that 8 out of the 16 regions in Ghana had been affected by this particular issue. So what did we do? We created a target framework, and we moved on sites. But this time around, you realize that the only thing which is quite different from Project X was targeting, but here Project Y it's more of a verification. And when we talk about verification, what we did was we leveraged on existing data from government partners, looking at how close a time it was. We didn't have time to go on the field to go and target and all that. So we leveraged on existing data from the government partners, went to collect the bio data, we verified if these individuals were alive. We did cleaning to get the households who has to be supported. We did our beneficiary shortlist, we did our cash-based transfer, and afterwards, I think we are still in the implementation of the post-distribution monitoring and reports. At the end of the day, we had about 26,000 households being supported with, I think, 2,000 cedi each. And this 26,000 plus household is equivalent to about 130 individuals, since we are using an average of 5 members per household. So on the cash-based transfer, what I would like to say here is we didn't just give out the money like in a lump sum. So we sat down to think, to give some lump sum, to give some on monthly basis, to be able to measure and see of what's impact. And I'll send some links post my presentation for you to appreciate reasons why the lump sum was the best at a point, and reasons why the giving people monthly had some benefits. So what are the results in utilizing data in the humanitarian space? From my experience, it saves costs. So for Project X, for instance, we had people trying to fraudulently access the funds which were meant for the smallholder farmers. So at the end of the day, not boasting, but we're able to save close to $1 million USD, which would have gone to wrong hands. Afterwards, this particular implementation that we do with data makes our data reliable. So once we are reporting, we have all confidence that we are reporting the right things. And also with this, when we go back to the donor to present our final reports, telling them about the number of people who would have received the funds fraudulently, we get to gain their trust, and in a way when limited funds are supposed to be prioritized. Because of our trustworthiness, we are prioritized and given help when needed. For every action or for every implementation, there are some challenges, right? And these are the 3 top challenges that we or I've normally seen in my implementation, right? And it's one, the bureaucracy in the system. So we have government partners or partners that we try and leverage on their data to be able to help individuals, but the bureaucratic nature of everything slows down the process, which has detrimental effect on us because the donors give us timelines to be able to give out these funds to the vulnerable. Also, data quality issues. In the case where we receive the data, we don't just send the data to the sites. We sit down, we clean it, and we realize the data the data that they said is reliable needs more cleaning than usual, which also pushes our timelines or our roadmaps back. And also there's the fraudulent things that are happening, which is rampant lately. I think most of us also are experiencing it. So what happens is we give funds via either cash in hand or via Momo, and people are opting to take it via Momo. But what we've seen so far is post the distribution from our end, people are able to fraudulently access these funds from how do you call it? The individuals who have been supported, which would deter our reports in terms of trying to see how impactful the money or the support that we give was. So one thing I'd like you to know is not always that we give our money. We give out sometimes during our analysis, we come and see that it's not money they need, it's more of training they need. At times we give them value vouchers to be able to purchase things from particular retail markets. You get it. So the needs assessment, as I mentioned earlier here, does it for us, where we are able to see what is really needed with data which is available. So what's the way forward? In the humanitarian space, I feel we should try and leverage on AI and machine learning. AI and machine learning in the sense of using AI to be able to improve our works and fast track everything that we do to be able to assist more in a very short span of time. And also for machine learning models to be built. I'll speak for World Food Program Ghana. We've been able to build some machine learning models which help you detect those who are vulnerable the most, those who should be focused on in terms of if we have larger numbers and limited funds. So ML, we look in the section of being able to predict particularly emergencies or disasters for us to be proactive rather than act in a knee-jerk manner. So that's for the humanitarian space. And I'd like to end it here. For some acronyms that you couldn't understand, particularly say WFP or PDM, you have it all here. And when I mentioned GEO in my project case studies, I meant geospatial analysis. Thank you very much, and I'll take any questions if there are. Over to you, Alberta.
Thank you, Stefan. Thank you so much for this amazing and insightful presentation on how data is so useful in the humanitarian space. And we'll take questions after every speaker has spoken, so that it's like a roundtable conversation. So
right, sure.
thank you so much. We're going to jump on to the next speaker. We're going to have Amma Nimako. She's a fellow Ebugis girl. Before Suhan, after studying at Every Girls, she went to Legon and then she studied political science and Spanish. And she's done her master's in international relations and affairs. So she's currently a data scientist and she works at Afrobarometer. And this is the research and policy industry. So Amma, you're welcome. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Alberta. Thank you, Stefan, for that insightful presentation. I mean, that's a tough one to follow, but I'm going to try to do my organization justice. I'm I will share my screen now, and then I will just dive right into the presentation. Okay, please, can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, that's perfect. So like Alberta mentioned, my name is Amakwanchwani Malcolm, and I am a data management assistant at Afrobarometer. Afrobarometer is a think tank that does mainly research surveys on public opinion about democracy, governance, and other issues affecting citizens on the African continent. And what we do is that we analyze the data that we collect from the citizens, and then we present our findings to stakeholders and policymakers who then act on that data to provide resources or to provide or address the needs of the citizens on the continent. So the title of my presentation is Let the People Have a Say, which is Afrobarometer's slogan, a presentation on the impact of the Afrobarometer data. So Afrobarometer, like I mentioned, is a Pan-African, non-partisan survey research network that provides reliable data on African experiences and evaluations of democracy, governance, and quality of life. We are an NGO, so we are independent. We are not affiliated with any government in Ghana or beyond. And our goal is to give African publics a voice in policy and decision making. So we just serve as that intermediary between the citizen and then the policymakers. So 9 survey rounds have been conducted in up to 42 countries since 1999. And a survey round is simply the period that we do the survey. So since 1999, we have done 9 surveys, but we are currently doing the 10th survey, which is projected to end somewhere in July or in August. We really have about just 3 countries, and then we are done with round 10 survey. So yeah, round 10 surveys were launched in January 2024, and they're expected to run to mid-2025. So Afrobarometer works in so many countries across the continent. So far, we have done surveys in about 42 countries. Some of these countries have been surveyed in for as far back as 1999, like Ghana. We are some of the pioneers of Afrobarometer. Of course, Afrobarometer was founded in Ghana, so we were one of the first countries to be surveyed. We have some newer countries that we are surveying in 2025, like Mauritania. So this is the methodology that we use at Afrobarometer. We use a nationally representative sample of adult citizens, so people aged 18 and above. We use face-to-face interviews in the language of the respondent's choice. So whether you speak Twi, Hausa, Frafra, Zulu, because we're in so many African countries, so we have so many field workers who speak a variety of languages, and they're able to communicate with their respondents in the language that the person wants to do the surveying, to do the interviewing. We use standard questionnaires, which allows us to do comparisons across countries and over time. So our questions more or less remain the same. We do have some country-specific questions from time to time, depending on what issues might be in the system at that particular time. Like when COVID hit, we didn't have survey questions on COVID until COVID hit, and then we made specific questions under COVID that we asked our respondents. So we use a sample size of 1,200 or 2,400, depending on the country. Some countries just generally have a larger population, so then we tend to take a lot more people from that particular country. So like we would survey more people in Nigeria than in Eswatini, for example. But then in the end, we do weighting, and then we are able to just bring everything to basically to the same level and then do the data analysis on that. Yeah. So this is just a couple of achievements of Afrobarometer. We have interviewed over 400,000 people so far across Africa. We have conducted 270 plus surveys in 42 countries since 1999. And We have awards such as the Best Data Set Award 2004 from the American Political Science Association, and we were also one of the top 10 best institutional collaborations involving 2 or more think tanks. So how exactly is our data portrayed, or is our data made available to people? So our data is made available in so many forms. We do have dispatches, we have Pan-African profiles, and we have policy papers. All this you can find on our website. We have scorecards as well. That basically shows a visualization of a particular topic at a time, and that's how we represent our data for people to use. And now to the main thing, which is how we actually get our data out there. We have a lot of briefings. So after every survey in every country, we do a public dissemination. We invite stakeholders from the government, we invite stakeholders from private sector to these briefings, and then we share our findings, our key findings to them. So we have briefings on corruption. When we did Ghana's Round 10 survey, we did a briefing on corruption, a briefing on economics, and a briefing on democracy, how people view democracy in the country. And we invited key stakeholders in Ghana to come to that briefing. So policymakers attend those briefings, they take notes, and then they go back and then they work towards, using the data to advance things for the citizens in the nation. So we also expand our presence via social media using infographics and videos. We have published 2 books, and all these can be found on our Afrobarometer website. I advise you to take a look. So these are some topics that we cover in our interviews. We look at topics around democracy and governance. We have questions around corruption, like I mentioned, service delivery, how we think the various governments are able to deliver on public services like just health, education, and others. Government performance, leadership performance, poverty, gender equality, climate change, populism, China and Africa. We do international issues as well. Election integrity, taxation, youth, and access to justice. These are some of the topics that we cover in our interviews. So this is just a snapshot of what our data typically looks like when it's presented. This is a scorecard on democracy in Ghana from our round 9 data, which was in 2022. So you can see demand for democracy, supply of democracy, corruption in the presidency. You have all the data there. This is a typical example of what our data looks like when it's presented in visual form. All right, so I'm not going to take much of your time because I could go on and on and on, but I think it's about time that I stepped into the real part of the presentation, which is some policy visibility and impact cases from 2022 to 2024. These are more recent cases. We have others, but of course, I can't give you every single case since 1999. So I just picked these 3 periods. This period, since it's the most recent one. And so here, mainly I'm just going to be taking you through some examples of impact of Afrobarometer data, how Afrobarometer data has impacted policy or has been cited, and then based on that citation has been used by policymakers to effect a certain kind of change in the betterment of the people on the continent. All right, so this is for 2024. So Afrobarometer published a paper on women's rights about Namibia, and then Namibia policymakers saw this and decided to work on this, and they passed the Combating of Domestic Violence Amendment Bill later in the year. It was directly linked to Afrobarometer's publication. So this is an example of how it works. They saw our data, they realized that there was a deficiency, and then they decided to work on that. Excuse me. Again, Gambia's 2023 to 2027 National Development Plan was launched by the president, Adama Barrow, on 9th February 2024, and they cited Afrobarometer's data about the state of democracy. And then they decided that, it's not encouraging. So we are going to work on this to fill the outstanding gaps during the implementation of the new development plan. Another way that Afrobarometer has informed policy. And in 2023, Nigeria's Peter Obi, who was a former governor of Anambra State and a presidential candidate for Nigeria's Labour Party in the 2022 presidential election, cited Afrobarometer to assess the state of Nigeria's democracy in a speech he delivered at the Chatham House. So the speech addressed issues affecting different sectors of the country. Again, Ghana's Speaker of Parliament, Honorable Babin, he cited Afrobarometer data to urge members of the parliament to change their attitude and conduct to regain the trust of the Ghanaian people. Again, Ghana's Office of the Special Prosecutor cited Afrobarometer in its 2022 half-year narrating report, highlighting initiatives that have been taken. The Special Prosecutor noted that it has commenced its corruption prevention drive under the flagship program Ghana Corruption League Table, which is akin to a combination of Corruption Perception Index of Transparency International and the scorecards, like the scorecard I showed you earlier, the scorecard of Afrobarometer. So this is also an example of how our data informed an entire corruption bill driven initiative in Ghana. Again, Al Jazeera featured an article titled Season of Push, Why Coups Become Popular in Africa, which cited Afrobarometer data to elucidate why coups have become popular in Africa. And it's interesting, this particular one, because when you take a look at our data from 1999 till now, you see that there's a steady increase in how young people embrace the military over democracy government. And so this was just really brilliant on Al Jazeera's side. And I think it reflects what we see currently with all the coups in Burkina Faso, Niger, Mali. Yeah. So Afrobarometer has helped to throw light on that side as well, and Al Jazeera saw this and picked it up. In Malawi, responding to the recent Round 9 Afrobarometer survey, which revealed that popular trust in the Malawian police service is fairly low amid perceptions that many police officers are involved in corruption, the Inspector General of the Malawian Police Service intimated that the police service is doing its best to improve professionalism among police officers. So this is referring to a couple of questions that were asked about how the police is performing in Malawi. We asked if citizens view them as corrupt, if they sometimes have to pay money for a service to be rendered to them. And, the responses were not favorable at all. They're not in favor of the police at all. So Malawi, of course, saw this, and now they are working on it to improve the professionalism among their police officers, like their Inspector General said. Again, the World Bank in a blog post cited Afrobarometer data in understanding the dynamics behind Burundi's COVID-19 vaccine hesitancy and its acceptance thereafter to help draw valuable lessons to inform ongoing and future measures in dealing with pandemics, sorry. Yeah, so like I mentioned, we had specific questions on COVID, and as you can see, these have become very helpful because COVID-19 was a new thing, and the whole world was trying to grapple with how to tackle it and the consequences thereafter, and how to use the lessons learned from COVID in future pandemics that, God forbid, may happen. So just looking at Afrobarometer data on Burundi helped the World Bank to really understand the trend of, acceptance of the vaccine. And hopefully this can inform future, again, God forbid, pandemics, yeah. Again, following the release of Afrobarometer findings on insecurity in Gabon, the National Police announced the deployment of 1,500 additional police officers. And this large-scale deployment, decided by the chief commander, is based on the investigation of Afrobarometer, which highlighted the link between the living conditions of the Gabonese populace and the insecurity that they face on a daily basis. Another direct link of how our data affected an initiative. And in this case, it's about security. Obviously, the people were not feeling safe, or that's what they said in the interviews anyway. So upon seeing this, the National Police decided to deploy more police officers to the areas of insecurity. And Sierra Leone's Commissioner of Anti-Corruption Commission, Francis Ben Kaifala, cited Afrobarometer data to assess the progress Sierra Leone has made in the fight against corruption. Citing Afrobarometer data, he noted that over the past 4 years, Sierra Leone has witnessed an exponential progress in the fight against corruption, reducing from 70% to 40%. And this is great because, like I said, Afrobarometer does standard interviews because it's longitudinal research, right? So we don't change our questions. So that means that we are able to do a trend analysis. So you can just take your country and then you check a particular topic that you want to check to see how the citizens are faring. You're able to analyze data from, if we started doing research in your country from 1999, from 1999 till 2025, you can analyze the data and then you'll be able to see the trend. So this is something that Sierra Leone did, and they realized that they're actually doing well when it comes to fighting corruption. So, I mean, there are so many use cases that I could cite, but for the sake of time, because I do only have 10 minutes, I try to make it as concise as possible. So I'm hoping that with those use cases, at least you now understand the impact that Afrobarometer's data has. Again, we serve as an intermediary between citizens and then policymakers, and we have been responsible for so much change that has occurred across the African continent when it comes to improving the lives of basic citizens. So in conclusion, I think this testimonial by Kande Yumkela, a member of parliament in Sierra Leone, sums up really what Afrobarometer is about. So he said that effective lawmaking and public policy formulation have to be data-driven. The Afrobarometer surveys fill a great void because our parliament in Sierra Leone does not have the research capability to do extensive surveys and analysis. For example, the 2020 and other recent Afrobarometer surveys in Sierra Leone have provided good data on key issues affecting the lives of citizens, such as hunger and economic hardship, and their perceptions of corruption in key governance institutions. Such data analytics has helped me as an opposition leader to hold government accountable and to advocate for greater transparency in how we do our work as members of parliament. Thank you so much. And please do visit the Afrobarometer website for more information. Over to you, Alberta.
Wow, let the people have a say. That was incredible. Thank you so much, Amma. And I hope we're all getting our questions ready, because after all three are done, we'll have an opportunity for questions. Thank you, Amma. And we're going to move on to our final speaker, Priscilla Abena Kranting. She attended Holy Child and then went on to KNUST, and where she studied integrated rural arts and industry. She's now a data analyst, and she works at Roundtable and is also a founder for Data in Action Africa. Welcome, Priscilla, and we can't wait to hear from you.
Hi, good evening. I'm happy to be here today. Can you see me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, all right then. Let me go ahead and share my screen so that I can walk us through my presentation for today. So for my part, I am to share on the use of data in driving innovation, operational efficiency, and business innovation, right? Can you all see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, right. So just like how we all have titled our presentations, I titled mine as using data to drive both business clarity and action. And so my name has already been mentioned. I work at Roundtable currently, as researcher for the Haptor AI Lab. Haptor has an AI lab where we focus on AI innovation. So I worked as a researcher. Before that, I was working as a product research assistant, which is basically, well, both the past and current role is a good mix of data and then research, putting the two and two together to help drive product growth, right? And as part of that, to the founder of Data and Action Africa, and we'll get right into the presentation, right? So, as I already mentioned, it's a good mix of data, right, and then research in order to help the business have to make money, right? And so, what that really means is that first off, Haptel is more of, I like to talk about Haptel as a product oriented company, as a fintech space. So, what I mean by product is that, let's say that you have a box, right? And in the box, there are different sectors. So, you have maybe a transportation sector, you have a food sector, you have a selling sector, you have all kinds of sectors, right? And so, we tend to have those multiple sectors as products, and then each person on the product as a researcher to help boost growth, right? And so for me, on my current product, what I do is to help analyze behavior on the product usage across the platform, and then also to help uncover patterns, which is one of the most important parts of being a data analyst, having the eye to see, discover, and then also explain patterns in your data, right? And then also work with stakeholders to support decision making, and then give recommendations as well as collaborations. Because the product based space, you have to work with engineers, you have to work with product managers, marketing team, UX designers, etc., so that you can all come together and then bring that idea or solve that problem back to data, right? Now, I keep talking about data, right? And so, to give a breakdown about how a typical day in the office looks like, is on this particular slide, right? But because of the unique difference of my role, there are oftentimes two different scenarios, right? There's an instance where you have data and you don't have data, right? I'll explain how and why. Okay. Now, I mentioned that we work in products. So let's say that I am currently on, let's assume that I'm trying to put information, sensitive information. Let's work with both, okay? Let's assume that I'm working with both, right? And then I am in the courier, I'm on the courier product, right? And so that means that you probably have an app for the couriers so that when they're going to pick up a package and they can bring it back to the company, can be able to track how long it took for the driver to get there, how long for them to get to the person receiving the package and etc. Right? So because we already have an app there, we're already tracking the data that is needed to make decisions in the future, right? So when there's data, things like making reports and dashboards are easily accessible and doable, right? Because once again, you have the data. So you're able to ask questions like how many people are using the product today, how many of them used it yesterday, has that increased, has that decreased, and then are people using maybe the are people log out of the product more, or they're logging in more, or when they land on a particular page, are they struggling to move to the checkout page, or I find it's very easy to move to that particular page, right? And because we have the data sitting somewhere already, we mostly use tools like Excel for data manipulation, and then we have Power BI, right? We have a large database, so in certain instances you might want to use SQL, but it's not exactly highly um, required of you to do, right? And so with the Excel and the Power BI, able to help um, answer questions from the data as before, make decisions, and then do your reporting, right? And so in the instance where you don't have data, right? Let's say that you already have the app for the couriers to be able to do deliveries and then bring it back to the sender and the like. But then maybe you realize that your competitor, let's say Uber, who also has the same rider service, right? They have this new feature called send a gift feature, right? Which is not exactly sending a packet, but it's a gift. I don't know. I'm just being crazy here, right? And so, how exactly can you, as a researcher, investigate into that particular new feature of a competitor to see if you can bring it on board to your existing feature and then help your business make money, right? That's the whole concept. So it could be in terms of researching about a competitor's new feature, or there's a problem that is happening, maybe a very small leakage of funds in the system that nobody actually pay attention to because it's a small leakage in the first place, right? So you can have to go research into it. Or you are just lying down in your room one day, they have a smart idea about how to improve courier services or boats, right? So you don't have a data to prove, so you have to do your own research, gather the data from scratch, and then come and present it, right? And so from that, what I often do in that situation is to go to the field and then run interviews or surveys. And as I said earlier on, look at the competitor and then put yourself in their shoes, possibly ask questions, pose as a different, it's all the research, different ways to go in about it, right? And then because most of these situations are you don't have the data there or the numbers there. You largely rely on qualitative feedback, and so how you're able to draw insights from that too is something we look into, right? So this is how usually data looks like at work when there is, and then there is no enough data to work with, right? Now, because of my current role, how the data and analytics help the business is first off by reducing uncertainty, right? For my current role, it was started around the same time I was hired, right? And the main reason for that was because they had difficulty making decisions that brought them money away from just feeling like this will work, right? And so we come into the picture as researchers actually help them to reduce that sense of I feel like to the data is saying this, right? And then also to aids in product development. So that if you're going to do something to an engineer to go and build, they're not coming to feel like it's going to work because it's going to take a much longer time for them to fix it, right? Because according to the data, if you're able to bring feature A and B in the next 6 days, you can boost your revenue by 13%, for instance, right? And then also to prioritize efforts. This is in line with the uncertainty part, right? Where it feels like you have a lot of things to do, you're unsure what to prioritize as a business. Because of the data there, because of the researchers at hand, you're able to tell that okay, even though we have to fix problem A, problem B is more important and can maybe through data analytics and prediction can potentially curb the issue and even fix problem A long term, right? And then also to internal conversations. This is something more of stakeholder level where maybe I remember a particular situation where um, there was I don't know how to put it clearly, but there was an instance where two main stakeholders had different thoughts about a product, right? One felt like the product is doing very well and so we shouldn't worry about it, it's just very slow. And then the other person thought that it's not doing very well. And they were mainly working with instincts, right? And I didn't know about this in the beginning. I didn't even know what I did my presentation. And then that was where it clicked to them that, oh, okay, stakeholder one was actually right, and then stakeholder B was wrong because of that insight, right? And so in that case, I was able to move their conversations from the stakeholder angle from subjective to more objective and aligned for the overall business mission and vision, right? So with that being said, right, of course, in every working space, there are challenges, right? And for the purpose of this presentation, I've narrowed my challenges to four main areas that I see come up more often, right? And one of that is the misinterpretation of data or the lack of context. So what that means is that for at Haptel, we have a lot of data. And so if you are able to ask the right questions, communicate clearly to the person in charge of the data, speak to the data engineer to get you the right data. You might end up getting half of your data, assuming to be the full picture, doing your report on it, realizing that, oh, I missed out the entire picture, right? So this is the part where asking the right questions are very important, right? And then secondly, too, has to do with stakeholder resistance. This ties in keenly with my previous example I gave, right, where the two stakeholders were at um, different opinions about how a product is performing, and they didn't have enough data to back except their feelings. Okay, and the reason why I was able to sit rightly was because I remember in the meeting I was in my presentation, they were asking me, do you have enough data to back this? And I said, yes. I went to the sheet, showed you my Excel file, highlighted the whole situation, like, oh, okay, then that's true, right? So you should expect that even though data is to make people take objective decisions, some people are still tied to their own emotions, right? And so the data should be communicated very clearly, straight to the point, and then have a very strong foundation, right? So that beyond their resistance, you have a strong footing to stand on, right? And then thirdly, too, is the over reliance of vanity metrics. So what I mean by vanity metrics is oftentimes stuff that do not exactly tie up to business goals, but they feel like they do. So let's say that you are supposed to do a report or a dashboard on the performance of your products in the last 6 months, right? And then instead of focusing on things like revenue, profits, right, or number of users, you're focusing on having too many cards or metrics on items like number of website visitors or the time of visits, even though they do not connect to the overall story, right? And lastly, having data gaps that also affects your analysis. That's this particular part because of the issue of collaboration. It is closely linked to um, having your requirements for your data very clear, right? Because in my space, I work more with data engineers and then product managers. One person might tell you something, and then you end up going to communicate the other thing to the engineer wrongly, and then long term affects the entire accuracy of your analysis, right? So if we look at these four challenges closely, right, you realize that although they look different, the themes running across them are the importance of asking the right questions and then communicating clearly, right? Once you're able to become strong in these two pillars, as data analyst, then this challenge shouldn't be a problem for you to be facing on a consistent basis, right? So with that being said, I've already touched on this, but you'd have to find the way to ask the right questions, okay? But it is the right questions that lead to the right data, right? And then also to keeping in mind that it is the noticing of your smallest trends in your data that solve the biggest problems. And because of particular reason, is why as Capital, we tend to look at our data numbers on a daily basis and do reports on that. So that even before the end of the month comes, you are aware that okay, on the 16th of July, we had a drop in active users. So that's take that color before the end of the month report comes, right? And thirdly, to keeping in mind that simplicity is the most important thing, right? When I was starting out, I thought that you have to be as bougie and complex as possible, having all the companies' logo colors on the picture on your dashboard, but that's not the exact thing that drives stakeholders to take action. Good analysis should make people take action instantly, right? It is how simple and straightforward your report is that helps them to build that confidence in what you are presenting in the first place. And then lastly, collaboration is key, right? I say this because earlier on, I I I think of myself as an introvert, right? And so I thought that being a data analyst is the perfect job for an introvert. But with time, I realized that being able to have very good relationships with your engineers, the product manager, the UX designers really go a long way to making sure that your analysis are not just fruitful to stakeholders, but then for your entire team as well, right? So, last but not the least, what my final thoughts would be for this presentation, which is straightforward, is that I've already said this again, my data should not be complex, right? Focus once again on simplicity as much as possible, right? And then keeping in mind that your work shouldn't just look wow, right? It should be able to drive action. And one way to help people drive an action, as I put here, is a logo of a movie, right? The movie clip thing. So she want to have your data story put in a way, have your storytelling on point to the extent where people are instantly driven to like, okay, I have to take an action on this, and not be like, oh, that's what is nice, or the colors are nice, or this one is aesthetically pleasing, right? That's what we are trying to get to. And finally, we as data analysts should try our possible best to embrace artificial intelligence, right? In the beginning, once AI was all over the place, everyone was afraid that it's going to make you lose your job or something bad will happen to the data analytics space. But with the new age of AI fast rising, they're realizing that it is not no longer about who will take your job or the sky being your limit by your imagination. As well as you can imagine something to be possible for you as a data analyst, it is possible. Once you're able to include artificial intelligence in your day-to-day life as a data analyst. So that pretty much brings me to the end of my presentation. It was pretty straightforward. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Priscilla. Thank you. So ask the right questions, communicate clearly, and simplicity is the most important thing. We love that. Thank you so much, Priscilla. And thank you to all our panelists. You guys have done amazing for sharing all this knowledge about real life experiences and how it impacts business, innovation, leadership, everything. Thank you guys so much. Guys, let's give them a round of applause in the chat session. And I hope we have our questions ready. We want to hear from you. So if you have any questions and thoughts or even any light bulb moments you'd like to share, please feel free to just raise your hand up or unmute and share with us what your questions are so that the panelists can respond to you with answers. Any questions for our panelists? And it doesn't have to be a question, it can just be a suggestion, an add-on before we quickly wrap up.
Hello, Alberta. I have questions.
Oh yes, Richard, please feel free.
All right. So thank you, Stefan, Amma, and Priscilla, for sharing your incredible journeys and perspective on, the data leadership. I like how all presentations touch on the practical and real-world applications within your respective fields. So the first question, which I directed to, okay, let's start with Amma. Amma, if I get it right, you said you work with Afrobarometer. And Afrobarometer, as you said, bridges research and policy. So my question then is, how do you ensure that your data insights are effectively translated into actions by the policymakers? And also, once a policy is implemented through your research and finance, do you engage in any, say, post-policy monitoring or follow-up to assess whether KPIs have been met? So that's for Amma. Should I wait for you to answer before I ask the other questions to the rest of the panelists?
Yeah, Amma should go answer that
Yeah, I
first.
can answer that right now if that's okay. Your first question about how we ensure that data is engaged or used by policymakers, right? So we do the part of collecting the data and then presenting the data. Like I mentioned, we do debriefs, we do disseminations, we invite policymakers, and then what they take from our data, they go and then they either use it or they don't. Our part is to be a think tank, is to collect the data and then to make the data available. We don't hold the policymakers to, a promise to use the data to make policies. It is our goal that they use the data to make policies, but then we don't have control over them to make the policies, if that makes sense. So if they use our policies, or sorry, if they use our data to drive policies, then that's great. But if they don't, Afrobarometer does not have the power to say, oh, you're supposed to use this policy. Because again, we are not affiliated with any government. The government does not have control over us, and neither do we have control over any government. So our data is there. If policymakers want to use it, then they use it. If they don't want to use it, then they don't use it. But thankfully, in most cases, they do use the data. So that is it. And then you said, do we do monitoring? Sorry, the second question was, do we do monitoring evaluation?
Yeah, but
See if
with your
we
answer to the first question, that means the second question becomes something like invalid.
Yes, exactly. So we
Yeah.
don't do a monitoring and evaluation of the policies. I will mention that Afrobarometer is affiliated with the Center for Democratic Development Ghana. You've probably heard of it, CDD Ghana. So CDD Ghana is more of a company that holds the government and then other organizations like in Ghana to are really holding on to policies. So they do more work on looking into corruption indexes, into doing investigation work and holding government and government bodies responsible or accountable to things that they're supposed to do. So that'll be more of CDD Ghana's work. But we provide data, and then if policymakers want to use it, then they use it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. The question has been well answered. So moving on to the next panelist, Stefan. You work in a humanitarian and development space with WFP, which often engages with vulnerable populations such as refugees, low-income communities, and the rest. So my question is, what ethical considerations guide your approach when collecting and analyzing this sensitive data, like maybe household conditions, age of the individual, like the farm case you shared? What safeguards do you implement to ensure that this data is used responsibly?
Oh, thank you very much, Richard. So in WFP, we have a well-structured system. So one, our data is not received via Excel. We have our own servers that this data can be, and these servers are hosted in Rome. So we make sure, and per policies, we don't even share data amongst departments. We have secured ways of sharing. And from my department, who receive the data primarily, what we do is we hash everything. We just give you the skeletal bits and form and keep in a safe repository with the keys and authorizations from our bosses. So for us, that's the strategy we implement. We use policies which have been determined and guidelines which has been set by our headquarters in Rome. Sorry.
Okay, that answers my question. Thank you very much. Priscilla, when you began your presentation, you made mention that you see Hapta as more product driven. So in that context, how do you balance innovation with incorporating, say, user feedback into your data products and, let's say, dashboard?
I don't understand your question clearly. You're asking how the
Yes.
how
So you know, when you are in the product space, when you build a product, you for testing people use it, give you feedback. That's why when you download products on Google Play and all, you can give feedback reviews, right? And the engineers or the product developers will work on those feedback to improve upon the user experience. So my question is, now, in improving upon the user experience of your clients, right? How do you actually do it? Because each one is giving different reviews. Are you looking at implementing all those reviews, or you rank them and say that, okay, this review is of topmost priority right now, so let's work on that, then later we implement other features? Yes.
Right. Yeah, I get you now. Okay, so first off, right, I mentioned, so this is a case where we have that would fall under qualitative feedback, right? And it would be rather unnatural, right, for any company to just pick up feedback from just anyone and then try to incorporate it into their plan just because it is feedback, right? So what you have to do is to analyze the feedback that has been given, right? Probably on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, depending on the frequency that the stakeholders will deal with, right? And then, as you rightly said, ranking the possibility of implementing this particular feedback and also the priority of it, right? Sometimes it's not like we don't want to take back your feedback, but the amount of research that's going to take for us to implement that will take much longer. So we're going to vary the priorities and make sure that because it's going to cost us maybe 5 cities to implement, we'll do that one first. And then the one will take us about 100 cities to do. We will put it across a 3 month period. And then, of course, before that 3 month period has already come, we are rolling out new features to make sure that they are getting comfortable and then prepared for that one thing they are waiting for to have released into the system. Do you get me?
Yes, please. That's what I said. Thank you very much.
Yeah, well.
Thank you very much, Richard, for your questions. If anybody else has a question, please feel free to share. But we are running out of time, so let's do that really quickly. If there are no more questions, oh, and Stefan just dropped something, some links, understanding cash transfer time in WFP data strategy, and in his LinkedIn, of course. If there are no more questions, let's wrap up.
I think someone's hand is up.
Oh, okay. Unfortunately, I can't see. Please feel free to unmute your mic.
Hello, can I be heard?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, my question is to Madam Amma Nimaku, Mrs. Nimaku. So I realized she was saying Afrobarometer is for the whole Africa, but then for their logo, I think Madagascar has been ruled out. I don't know if you've noticed that. So I don't know if you can, draw the attention of whoever so that it should be included in that. If it's to serve the whole of Africa, I think Madagascar should be included in the logo. All right, thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much, Evans. Good observation.
Thanks, Evans. Is there any other person? Sorry, I can't see if someone's hand is up, so you'd have to prompt me.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening, Danielle.
Yeah, please, my name is Daniel. Actually, what you just called, I'm just a student at Blossom Academy currently studying data analysis. I'm just new to the course, and this evening, I think I've understood a lot of things that we have been taught that it's not good for you to do this, not good for you to do this. I think in the presentation that has been made, have let me understand more about what actually have been taught over there. And I can say that I'm proud with my instructors who are instructing me, and I think whatever they are telling me was the right thing. So I want to share this that I'm just happy that of all the presentations that has gone on. I'm very, very, very proud about it. That's what I can say.
Thank you so much, Danielle. Our presenters appreciate you so much. And we are glad that you've been able to learn something and you'll be able to implement it once you become a full-time data analyst. Is there anyone else? Or should we start wrapping up?
Okay, I think I do have something to say. Grazia.
Grazia.
Okay, so first off, I want to say hats off to all our presenters for the incredible presentation. It was really insightful. I'm getting to enjoy the diverse perspectives of all these individuals in their various fields. It was really, really intriguing. Okay, so I think I would like to keep it simple. What's that one lesson? I mean, this is to all our presenters. What's that one lesson you've learned in your various work spaces? I mean, post Blossom, because I know sometimes what we are being taught in the classroom, when you get to the field, right? Not entirely parallel, but you realize there's a bit of discrepancy. So that's what's that one lesson you've learned post Blossom that you think an aspiring data analyst or someone already in the data space can maybe add to their skill to keep them and to make them all pumped up. So I don't know if my question is clear. Thank you.
Thanks, Grazia. Yes, your question is clear. Panelists, over to you.
Can I go first?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, okay. So thank you, Grazia, for that wonderful question. In fact, thank you everyone who has asked the question so far. All your questions have been brilliant. The one lesson that I learned from Blossom Academy, which is taking effect in the work that I do as a data management assistant, is that data cleaning is key. I remember when we were in Blossom, before, when you're doing a project in machine learning or what have you, you always have to start with the data cleaning, and sometimes it's such a rigorous process. So you're like, oh, it's so unending and it's just tiresome. But I've come to realize that it's really important because the work that I do involves a lot of data cleaning, a lot of quality control checks, and we are dealing with data on the perceptions of people. So if you mess something up, that means you're misrepresenting the entire continent. So I would urge all the students at Blossom Academy, pay close attention to data cleaning and quality control because it goes a long way when you're doing work that involves data. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Alma. Stefan, Priscilla, would you like to add to that?
Yeah. So okay, Priscilla, kindly go.
All right. So I agree with Amma on that point. It's something that I thought I could avoid, but it always keeps coming back to haunt you, right? So that's a strong point. And in addition, I'd like to add collaboration, right? I mentioned earlier during my presentation that I am very introverted, so I thought that getting to become this analyst meant that it was just me in a hoodie behind my laptop and then working remote. But over time, I realized that finding the right way is not just about speaking to people, but building relationships. So that if you need something, you can go to them, even though it is their responsibility. But that sense of collaboration and relationship building amongst your team really helps to help you kind of this analyst. So this was our add.
Thanks,
Okay.
Priscilla.
So I would say I agree with what they've said on the data cleaning and collaboration. Personally, when I was in Blossom, I did enjoy Salom's class. I'm always at the back making noise, but when it's his class, we just keep quiet and listen because it was less data talk for us. So I did enjoy. I learned a lot from it, particularly on the outside of the data field, what you have to do, the email etiquette and all that. I think that's really helped. And I would say one thing about more of collaboration, trying to speak with more people, get more insights, and grasping the opportunity when once it comes. And also the LinkedIn, yeah. LinkedIn, Salom did drum it a lot. I think it's helped. And for anyone who wants to delve into the data analytics, I think Blossom is a one-stop shop for you. And what we do in terms of or what I did in terms of projects is not far off what I'm doing in terms of the steps I'm using, the cleaning, the wrangling, the presentation, the reports, and all that. It's the same thing that's happening. So if you are in Blossom now, afraid or having some perception about the real world work, if you take what you are doing in Blossom serious, I think once you get to the internship bit, you should be okay. So yeah, that's from.
Thank you so much, Stefan and Amma and Priscilla, for that, for responding so beautifully. I think there's one more. Ernest, Henry, I see that your hand is up. Do you have a question?
Yes, thank you so much for this great opportunity. I wish to also thank all the wonderful people who took us through the various presentations. Mine is not actually a question, but it's a question, but not related to this. I just want to seize the opportunity to find out from Blossom Academy. I did an application recently concerning the 6 weeks training program, and I wish to know what timelines the training are going to take place, and also how I'm supposed to prepare, I mean, in anticipation of the training. If you can share a bit light on the training and what it includes, I'll be very grateful. Thank you.
Hi, Ernest. Thank you so much for your question, and we are excited that you looking forward to joining us at Blossom. So currently there are different programs running, and we can't emphatically state that probably you applied for this or that. So I would reach out to you and help you with any challenges or anything. Or better still, you can send me a mail, honeylove@blossom.africa. I'm typing it in the chat so you can send me an email and I'll see how best I can clarify all your concerns. Thank you. Yes, so please, that's my email. Please send me an email so that I can help you with any clarifications or any of your concerns. Ernest, please, does that work for you?
Yes, please. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you as well. Alberta, over to you.
Thanks, Connie. And before we wrap up, I just wanted to say Amma and Stefan have their LinkedIn's links to their LinkedIn's in the chat. So you can check that out if you want to shoot them a follow or connect. And I do have something exciting to share. The Data Leadership Roundtable is not just a one-time thing, it's a series, and there are going to be more series coming along. All right, so we're bringing in more experts, we're diving into fresher topics, we're continuing to explore real impacts of data across different sectors. So stay tuned, we'll be sharing the dates soon, so keep an eye out for the emails when they come through. And before we wrap up, just want to say thank you so much to our amazing panelists that were on the roundtable today. Top-notch presentations, great insights. Thank you guys so much. Stefan, Priscilla, and Amma, that was amazing. And thank you to all of you amazing people who joined us. Thank you. Thank you to all the amazing people who joined this session. We appreciate you, and we are definitely looking forward to seeing you in the next one. So until next time, bye and see you. Have a lovely evening.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Ciao.